Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Fully Vetted. We're glad that you joined us today. And if you haven't had the opportunity to see our other videos out there, please take the time to go subscribe to the channel, like them. You know the game. Let's make it all happen. This morning, we're here talking with Lynn Behm. He has a 2008 Corvette right now, but we're going to hear his story about how he became a Corvette lover. And to start off with, I want you all to know that Lynn has graciously allowed us to use this space for our own use to film this video this morning because it happens to be inclement weather outside, and we don't bring Corvettes out in the rain and snow because we live in Utah. And so that's why we're doing this here. We do have some footage of Lynn's car that we're going to add in, obviously, that you'll be able to see. So Lynn, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us about your business, and then we'll get going.
Thank you. I'm Lynn Behm. My wife and I have an accounting firm. She is a brilliant tax strategist, and I am the husband who does sales and marketing. It's National Real Estate Accountants. We serve real estate investors. The way we do that is with the strategy. We keep more of their money in investments and vacations and less going to the IRS.
And I can personally attest that they do a wonderful job. So Lynn, let's talk about your history of Corvettes, where it all began, what kept you motivated throughout the years, and what was the thing that got you started? What was it?
Thank you, boy. I've been a car guy ever since the tiniest memories of a little kid. I used to be able to identify, there's a DeSoto, there's a Oldsmobile, there's a, various kinds of cars driving down the street as a very young kid, really into it. And I started collecting model cars also very early, probably around 7 or 8 years old. And I really attracted to Corvettes. So I had a lot of Corvette models. So when I graduated from the University of Utah, I thought, now I'm finally free. What would I like to do? And I already knew I wanted to get a Corvette. So I'm looking back in these days, there used to be a section of the paper, in the newspaper, that was for parts and what have you. And so in the parts thing, there was this guy that was selling a Corvette up in Layton, Utah, which is up near Hill Air Force Base. So I went up and took a look at it, and it was a POS. And I said, and you hear about rolling chassis. This was not. I had to borrow some tires from him so that I could get it down to Salt Lake. It had an engine fire, and so the whole firewall was like cloth, and so it was seriously in trouble. Because he was thinking of rebuilding it, he did buy a wire loom for the underdash, so I at least had that, and I was able to get the car put together from my own parts. And so I had an engine that I bought. You know how they are; they're hanging from the tree, or they're in some guy's backyard, like under a tarp. So I bought this 300 horsepower engine. And I rebuilt it. I had some friends that had fueler heads, and so I had the double pump fueler heads. I had a Duntov cam, pop-up pistons, and so probably, it's hard to know. I never had it tested, but I'm thinking it was very close to being the 350 horsepower from the factory for that particular the fueler engine. But I was breaking it in, and this is a '62 Corvette. It was last year of the C1 body style, and it was such a frustration. I said, "Oh, I am going to abandon this project." It was my among many projects that were not as satisfying as I had dreamed. And when I took it apart, my friend and I, when we were building it, we had put the clutch disc in backward, and I couldn't get the clutch to work right. I had to turn the engine off, put it in first gear, restart the car, and then I could let the clutch go. So I sold that back in parts. It wasn't good enough to sell as a whole car. But I kept the engine, and the engine we'll talk about in a minute what I did with that to continue the legacy of I have a dream.
I have a dream. So what was the time frame that we're talking about here? The Corvette was a '62. So what year was this all happening?
Oh, okay. So I graduated from the university around '72 or '73, okay. And so it was right at that time. I had a full-time job working for the Salt Lake City School District and a regular paycheck. Life was good.
Right. So you bought the car, you messed with it for a little while, decided you wanted to go in a different direction, took the motor out. Now where are we at?
Okay, now there's going to be years before the next Corvette, but I haven't forgotten Corvettes, of course. I'm a serial husband. That was with my first wife, and then my second wife. I have cars all along here that I think are significant one way or the other. And then Janet and I got married back in 2012, and both of us had lost spouses. And so, we found each other, and my son-in-law, who works at a car dealership, a Dodge dealership, he called me on the phone. He says, Lynn, are you still looking for a Corvette? I couldn't even remember ever saying I was looking for a Corvette, but I said, let me just check with Jen. I said, Jen, are we still looking for a Corvette? She says, Lynn, if we're going to get a car like that, we need to get it while our knees are still good enough to get in and out of the car. And so, yes. So I said, yep, we're coming to see it. That was a 2008. It was candy apple red. Oh, it was everything I ever dreamed of. This one was, and I have to say, I've had a lot of disappointments over the years. This one was the vision of what it could be and the vision of what it actually is lines up so beautifully. I just love that car. We have such fun in it. And our knees are still good enough to get in and out of it, so the beat goes on.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story. Yeah, there's nothing like that perfect car when you show up and there's nothing you can do. It's already done.
Thank you. That's right. Yeah. Don't touch. If it's perfect, that's when you know to stop.
Tell us the story in between about after you sold the Corvette and you took the engine out. What was the next step about your car journey?
Oh, thank you. So, the most exciting one was I was at a party sitting next to a guy, and he was talking about his race car. And I said, well, tell me a little more about this, because I had this, another one of those dreams was that I would build a fiberglass body and make a sports car, like build it from scratch, which now, having the experience, that was not a good idea, but I didn't know any better. And so he said, well, I've got this race car. And I'm thinking, man, that'd be the great chassis for this fiberglass body I want to build. And so he explained to me it's a sports racer. A sports racer is a covered wheel car, and it's a two-seater. It had, and it was from Britain. It was a Cooper Monaco, and it was chassis CM261. And it is a famous chassis that and I don't have the history on it, but if you do a Google search on it, there's, important people owned that car at various times. So he took me out to a field of weeds, and here's this purple-ish looking husk, and one wheel is completely off. Weeds are growing up through the passenger compartment, but I have a dream, I have a vision, and so I said, well, I'll buy that from you. But once I started cleaning it up and painting it and what have you, I thought, this is a race car. It'd be kind of fun to be a race car driver. So I went ahead and I thought, well, I abandoned that fiberglass body idea, and I said, let's just be a race car. And that was another one of those ill-fated things. There's a Sports Car Club of America. We have a local chapter, and all of these guys have the Bug-Eye Sprites and whatever, different kinds, Mini Coopers, different kinds of closed wheel cars, not real high performance in my, compared to this car with the 350 horse engine in about a 1,200 pound car. And me, I was slender back then, so that thing really scattered. And I should have been in the pole every time, and every time I would be way in the back, and I could see way up there, the green flag is waving. I can hear all these little engines go, and all of a sudden, like the Red Sea, it just parted because they knew somebody was coming through. So it took me a second to get an idea of, well, slam the throttle down, and it was so much torque. The front end came light, and I couldn't actually see that well. And so I went for a long time, and then I let off the gas. Oh yeah, I still am passing cars. Back to the full throttle. Later on, there was some real competition. We had a sports car, a regional race, and here in Salt Lake, there was some guys from out of town. There was a 427 Corvette and a 327 Corvette coupes that were in the same category now with the closed wheel. And so I'm in this A Sports Racer, 1,200 pounds, 350 horsepower. I have a severe advantage over these guys. So what would happen, the light, went green, and man, I'm on the right side here, so I'm shifting with my left hand, which is not a problem. And I'm going through the gears, and now I hit red line. I can't go any faster. And so I just little red line till the end. Now I got to start slowing down. This car had 4-wheel disc brakes, no power. I couldn't push the brakes hard enough to lock those brakes. I couldn't do it. So I had to start shutting down way early for the corner so that I could make it safely through the corner and then continue on. So these Corvettes, I'd leave them in the dust. The racetrack was a quarter mile, was the main straightaway, and then they had various S's and various things on the back. And so I'd get to the end of the straightaway, and they'd be caught up with me by then. And of course, I'm going to go through the corners way faster than they can. And then I get to that back straight, and wham, bang, I'm gone again. Trouble was, it was at turn 5. That was my nemesis. I hit turn 5, and the guys that were teaching me how to drive a mid-engine car would say, if it starts to come around on the back, you just push gently on the throttle to transfer weight back. Well, I would do that because that's what they told me to do, and they would spin out wildly to the infield. And many times it spun out wildly to the infield. I had no idea what the problem was. The problem was, by the way, I love racing tires, and so I had these brand new Mickey Thompson race tires on the front and these old hard rubber, who knows what, how old they were, on the back. And so it was just, I had wonderful grip on the front end, so it was just crazy. The day that we stopped on that particular race, instead of spinning out to the infield, it spun out to the outfield, and I'm sliding across the asphalt, and then I get into the dirt, and as soon as I hit the dirt, it digs in. And that car's got a low center of gravity. It lifts right up on the right side, and if the door hadn't been in the way, I could have reached down and pushed. Literally, it was paused right there, and then it gently rolled upside down. And boy, that is disorienting. Oh man. So, but I can see gas dripping out of the gas tank, and I'm thinking, and the carburetor's probably doing the same thing. I got to get out of here. And so so the doctor came over and he says, "How are you feeling?" I'm fine. He says, "Lynn, you got to calm down." So I said, "No, I'm fine. And while I'm doing this, the wrecker guys come over and they roll the car on the good side. So now I have both sides crushed. But I had a wonderful guy he said, "I want to be your crew." I said, "I want a crew." And so he had this big rubber mallet, and he was pounding the fenders out to clear so I could get back on the track. Oh, God. Anyway, variations on a theme.
So you did become a race car driver.
I did, so to speak.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I showed up.
and so from then on out, what was your car buying history?
I was a real Ford Thunderbird fan, and so my first Thunderbird was in 1960. My parents gave it to me when I graduated from high school. Beautiful car. And so I thought, oh, I like this. And then somewhat later, so now I'm with the first wife, by the way. So I had an opportunity to buy a British sports car, an MG Midget, for $1,500, or I could get 2 cars for $1,500. I had a friend who was selling his overhead cam 6 Pontiac Firebird, and then I had another guy that I met who had a 57 Thunderbird with a 428 Cobra jet with 3 2-barrel carburetors, and he was a drag racer. Who knows how much power that had. And I thought, let me go ahead and go for the 2 cars. And then second wife, my sweet Jackie, who passed away, she bought a 72 Thunderbird and maroon, and oh man, that was a beautiful car. And so we shared that for a long time. And then she said, "Lynn, I'd like to have you buy a brand new car. You've never had a brand new car." And I said, "That's true." She said, "Well, let's go ahead and you go over to the dealership and take a look." So I went over to a Ford dealership and I was looking at Thunderbirds. Brand new 84 Thunderbird Elan. Man, what a 5-liter, and it was a cherry. Now that was the one where I didn't change the oil often enough, and finally one day the oil pump just said, "We're not working here anymore." And so I said to my wife, Jackie, I said, "Well, I really need to rebuild this and do it right." She says, "Do whatever you need to do." So I had the block blueprinted. I was still with the Sports Car Club of America, so I was doing solo, which is like the parking lot where you're just one car's out going around the cones.
What about the Mustang?
So I've got this black Mustang convertible. I got it from my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law got it because he was an engineer with Ford in Detroit, Michigan. This was his company car, and they allowed them to buy the car, but you couldn't sell it right away because they didn't want you being in the used car business. And so I said, "I'm interested in that." He said, "Well, I'm interested in selling it to you." That was a 5-liter convertible GT, 5-speed. It scatted. All of these are really wonderful cars.
And what year was that Mustang?
93.
93. Okay.
Yep. And it was his factory car. It was a beautiful car. My youngest daughter, she says, "If you ever get rid of that car," she says, "I got dibs on it." So first rights of refusal. So when Janet and I got married, I said, "Well, I don't have enough room for all of these cars." She says, "We're going to have to get rid of something." So I called Tata and I said, "Tata, I'd like to give you this Mustang. Are you interested?" Of course she was. She'd been telling me for years she wanted it. Anyway, so she has a personalized license plate that is Wild Woman. she loves that car also.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So now back to the 2008 Corvette. I understand there's a story about you and Janet when you took it on your first couple of drives.
Oh, yes. Now, I'm a big fan of wide tires, and this car has, from the factory, they're just beautiful C-rated, 140 mile an hour tires. And so the day that we bought it, I'm really nervous. We drive it off the parking lot, and she says, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's go up to your daughter's house. They have a cabin up in the mountains. He says, let's take a little road trip. And so there's a beautiful canyon that winds up there, and it's fun to drive. A lot of curves, a lot of straightaways, that kind of thing. The very first thing I noticed is I started going around at speed on one of these curves, and the car, I turned and it went exactly where I pointed it. This is wonderful. And I noticed that because I'm used to like heavy front engine, over or understeering, what have you. This was not that. This was like, you pointed, it goes.
So I understand there's an interesting story about the first time that Janet got to drive the Corvette.
That's correct. We were on our way to a wedding in Elko. And Elko is, between Elko and Salt Lake is the Bonneville Salt Flats. And I said to Janet, these tires are Z-rated. That means they're good for 140 miles an hour. Pause. And she says, okay. So I ran it up to 110. And
Allegedly, right?
Thank you. Allegedly, and I took it up to 120, and then I backed off. And then I went up to 125, and I backed off, and I thought, okay, that's enough for this trip. On our way back from the wedding, I said, Janet, why don't you drive? So she's driving, and I'm saying, you remember, these are Z-rated tires. She says, no, I'm fine. Back and forth. Finally, she says, okay. And she took it up to 110, and she says, the scenery is moving too fast for me, but I was very proud of her.
That's an awesome story. That's I mean, the Corvette,
allegedly.
Right, allegedly, and that's what they're made for. They're made to enjoy in that way, and who doesn't want to go out and go fast in a Corvette? I mean, what do you buy it for, right?
That's true.
Then tell me a little bit about the difference between going to buy your first Corvette and then the passion that finally led to buying this Corvette that you own now. What was the thoughts that were going through your head? Why is it such a dream come true for you at this point in your life?
I have been a car guy. I've said that. And so I've lusted after things, especially mid-engine cars, I thought, okay, well, here's this car's getting old enough now that's probably in a reasonable price range. I could maybe consider getting a particular car, one model or another. But Corvettes, even though in Europe, they are disdained, they don't think that's a high performance car compared to their idea. For me, Corvette is absolutely a high performance sports car, a luxury car, that thirst for something exotic and powerful, and has always been there. So when we got this 08 Corvette, 430 horse, just, you push the throttle down and that thing just goes. And I love I've never had a paddle shift before. So, and I rarely have had an automatic. Usually I've had standards. But the paddle shift, I have never missed a shift with the paddle shift. Bang, bang. It's always right there.
Yeah, that's very true. Corvettes have definitely become a more exotic sports car over the years, especially with the C8 that's come out now.
Oh man, yeah, the mid-engine.
Yeah.
That we've been waiting for it. Corvette people, we've been waiting for it for way too long.
A long time, yeah. Since Duntov back in the early
Yep.
60s and 70s, yeah.
Yep.
So what do you think about any Corvettes in the future, Lynn? Is it something that, I just bought my third one, so there's never too many.
Thank you. That's right. That's right. Who makes the rules anyway?
Who makes the rules, right?
So Janet and she says, Lynn, I would like to have you enjoy a mid-engine car. You talk about it all the time. She said, I'm thinking that there might be a C8 Corvette somewhere in the future here. And so I have to say, I would have no reason to reincarnate. I would have had it. Thank you.
Looks like we'll be back for another video, folks. Awesome. Well, good. That's good to hear, because you can never have too many Corvettes.
And I want to just say to everybody, remember to punch the like, subscribe. I've been a subscriber. I think I was number 7, and I just tell you what, I love being in the fully vetted tribe. I can recommend it.
Well, Lynn, I want to thank you for spending time with us again, and like I said, thank you for letting us using your space. And it's been such a pleasure and such a fun moment to hear your story, and I'm glad that you were willing to share it with us.
Oh, Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, thank you once again. As Lynn mentioned, go subscribe. Have a good time with these videos. Share them with your friends. Like them. And let's get this ball rolling and really make this channel something worth watching. Have a good day.